Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the famous, currently, Ozark Trail 7.5 inch slide lock knife. I guess that's what they call it. Ozark Trail, you guys suck at naming that. What is wrong? Just give it a name. Jeez, it's like somebody looking at an object through binoculars and just doing their best to describe it from a long distance, right? It's ridiculous. But anyways, this is a famous knife right now because it is very, very inexpensive. It comes in, to my knowledge, two forms: the stainless steel version in this white plastic, and then the D2 version in the orange plastic. Depending on where you're looking and when you're looking and whether or not it's available, it's anywhere from $5 to $10. So it got a lot of attention, specifically the D2 version, after we had apparently some members of the community Rockwell test it, and they came to find that it was actually within optimal range. Very cool, very interesting, right? That gives the impression that this is an incredible value pocket knife. At the same time, I would venture to guess that the range as far as where the HRC could land is probably pretty wide, but it clearly has the potential to land there. Like, I mean, D2 for $5 to $10 landing within optimal range, that's incredible for $5 to $10. So does this knife outclass every single budget knife on the market? Absolutely not. It's really cool though, and it's definitely a good value, but I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I think. I'll link it down below. Don't expect it to be available. I mean, everybody jumps on like super cheap stuff like this. Better yet, just expect that Ozark Trail is aware of the popularity of these ultra inexpensive axis lock or crossbar locking knives, and they will probably make a bajillion different models in the future. So just pay attention to what they're doing if you really want to get your hands on them. But I do have some things that I want to point out to you guys and some things to consider before you buy this versus something that costs slightly more. Thanks so much to my friend of the channel who sent this in. It'll go back to him when I'm done. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement. I want to get through specs here very quickly so we can talk about this knife. The overall length of this knife is 7.5 inches. Blade length is 3 inches, and your cutting edge is about 2.9. Very, very similar. Like, I mean, this is like the cheapest bug out that any company has ever made. I mean, it's clearly another company trying to tackle the popularity of the bug out and just make it ultra cheap. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom sales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. You can see here it's a small knife, not a tiny knife, definitely compact, definitely lightweight. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3, much closer to the size of the Para 3. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action of this knife? I want to point out this knife is very similar to roughly 180 or so other knives that I have reviewed. That's no joke. This did not require careful, scientific, ultra long-term carry in order to come to the conclusions that I did, right? This is a very simple object, and I've experienced many, many objects that are similar, so I know what to expect. But I'm gonna try and keep my criticisms. I'm gonna pull the reins back on them because, again, this is essentially a $5 pocket knife. The crossbar locking system, this is no different than any other axis lock crossbar lock that we've seen a million times. It uses Omega springs that are kind of like medium. They feel actually a little bit higher tension than what Benchmade typically uses, but not quite as insane as some of the heavier stuff that we might see from Kunwu. The action is lumpy. I think that's the best way to describe it. It feels like when somebody over tightens a knife that's utilizing bearings. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's what's happening essentially across the board at the factory that these are being created in. Whatever machine is responsible for screwing them together is just yeet, and it's if it makes a few indentions, it makes a few indentions. So it's going to be a little bit lumpy, right? Do the people who are buying this really care? Probably not. I mean, the reality is that it deploys and you pull the thing down and it drops shut. It's not a luxurious drop shut. It's kind of like dropping something off the edge of a building and it goes to the bottom because gravity exists, right? Depending on who you ask. I believe in gravity. So, yeah, that's what's at play there. It does work and it does snap open. The thumb studs are in the right place. I can reverse flick it. I mean, it does exactly what I'd expect it to do. I'm not going to criticize it too much, but does it feel competitive with knives that are slightly more expensive? No. If you're used to, let's say, $30 or $40 knives, this is going to feel a little bit lumpy. If you don't care and you're looking to just buy a cheap knife, yeah, you'll be really happy with this. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's close, not quite. Right? Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Where did that go? There it is. Thing is always invisible to me. Yeah, this is a lightweight, compact, fairly thin knife. It's not going to be hard to carry. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools, excuse me. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Is the pivot a T10? I doubt it. No, it's not. Thought we might get lucky there. I bet the whole thing is T8, which would be nice, right? So we are looking at, yeah, it might be a T8 plus. The body screws, nope, we're not going to get lucky. They really took a note from Benchmade. They were like, make sure it's a weird T8, or, well, I'm sorry, they use a different pivot size than Benchmade. Make sure all the, let's see if a T9 fits. Yeah, the pivot, no, it's not T9, it's probably a T8 plus. It's also, I should note, is 100% is free spinning, right? So yay, free spinning. Not going to expect too much for $5 to $10, right? But I want to see if the body screws, if a T7 actually fits. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. No way. No, it's a T6. So T6 body screws, built the same way as a Benchmade, meaning you got the awkward screw in the middle because it's got a little cartridge liner, which, yay, extra screws. And they also have the screw up there for the stop pin. So you have 4 screws on each side, and then you get to get in there and deal with an axis lock, which is far from impossible, but definitely frustrating, especially for first-time people. Then again, this is a $5 to $10 knife, which is very close to what I would label as disposable. So, do you need to, right? Do you need more than hot soap and water, compressed air, and olive oil to take care of this thing? Probably not, right? If you really want to take it apart, it's probably going to be a little bit frustrating, and I can guarantee you the tolerances are not perfect. Better than I would assume for a knife that costs $5 to $10, but far from perfect. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's weigh it. What do we have for materials here? We have stainless steel, which could be anything. I got to stress this. The white version of this is stainless steel. Probably it could be 3CR13. Or I'm sorry, I gag every time that steel, those numbers and letters come out of my mouth. Or 440A, 440B. I mean, who knows? It's stainless steel. I'm being a snob. Again, $5 to $10. Who really cares? What's really interesting is that you can get what is apparently actual D2 on the non-stainless version, right? Which is definitely what you should go for. I mean, it's almost a stainless steel, and if it's actually being heat treated properly, it's going to have really good attributes and really good edge retention. This you're going to cut twice or 3 times into a piece of cardboard, and it will already need to be stropped. That's just the reality of it, right? But it'll have essentially a working wedge that you can continue to use, and bringing it back to life will take almost no effort. So does it really matter at $5 to $10? The truth is no, it doesn't. As long as the blade doesn't disintegrate when you use it, it's still a sharpened piece of metal. It will absolutely not perform like knives that cost just $10, $20, $30 more. It won't. There are plenty of reasons, right? We're going to go over the reasons to buy a knife that costs a little bit more. But will it work as a throw around, nearly disposable beater blade? Yes, right? So we're looking at that, whatever the blade is, and because they don't specify. And then we have some injection mold scales that are white, so you can writ dye them if you really want to, or you can leave them this color, which, by the way, is more of a well-maintained tooth color. It's not quite white, right? But not a yellow tooth. 2.2 ounces, it's ultra lightweight, right? We should actually do a direct size comparison with a bug out, which it is clearly modeled after. There you go. It's pretty close. Okay, let's do blade stock thickness, and then let's get into some things to consider before you buy this, right? Blade stock thickness is 88 thousandths, so definitely on the thinner side. Okay, meat and potatoes time. So this has decent ergonomics, and it's not because they did anything special here. It's because this is the classic knife profile. Elongated drop point or spear point blade. We have the classic knife handle profile that's been done a million times by every company, even 100 years before Benchmade thought to release the bug out or design the bug out, right? It's just classic, normal, right, functionality. Feels good. The pocket clip has an insane amount of retention on it and is very pokey right here. It will absolutely dick with you as you go in and out of the pocket, but whatever. It's $5 to $10, so I can't criticize it too hard. The area here that is meant, you would think, as a means of traction is just apparently aesthetic. It doesn't provide any traction, but that's okay, right? The blade, very straightforward. It does actually come down to, like, I think this is actually a hollow ground edge. It comes down to a reasonable edge. And, you know, truthfully, the bevel doesn't look too bad. I mean, like, maybe it gets a little weird up here. It's just like the coating was just like, it's close enough, right? This is the equivalent of getting to the finish line and like starting to jog through it like 10 feet before. That's essentially what we're looking at here. But again, I don't want to be too mean because it's pretty cheap, right? Fit and finish on this is, again, better than I expected, but nowhere near the same level that you might get for, let's take like the CJRB Acacia, which is roughly a $30 knife. This knife is legitimately superior in every way, which it should be, right? Now you could argue, hey, if I get one of those orange ones that's 61 HRC and D2, the edge will last longer. Sure, you could roll the dice there, right? If the edge retention is really, really important. But this knife at $30, which admittedly is, if you actually get this for, you know, $5, is 6 times the price, right? So it should be better. The edge is definitely sharpened better, has a way better edge. This is way better fit and finish, way better action, way better solidity of lockup, meaningful traction. It's got, in my opinion, a better clip, more reasonable retention, much more comfortable ergonomically. It's better. It should be, right? And the bearings are not lumpy. They don't feel lumpy, right? Lockup solidity. Does it have any blade play? You betcha it does, right? However, it's a holding out, right? It's just there definitely is lock slip up and down, right? You're not going to be able to tighten this out. And there's no lock stick in that got stuck there, which it will. But there's no lock stick. So I feel like they did the crossbar lock just fine. The edge. So when I went to cut with this, immediately I noticed there's a nick in the blade. So the very first time that I cut into just cardboard with no staples or anything like that, I was like, there's a nick right here. And then there's also a nick up here. And truthfully, I couldn't remember because I put this on the rotation pile, right? Not like just laid it down a bunch of other knives. It was folded up and put in a little case, right? I couldn't remember if I noticed that when I unboxed it. And I didn't go back to look. It's possible that I knew that, but I remember cutting into a piece of cardboard. I was like, there's a nick here. And then I went up the blade and there's another nick up there. This will almost certainly come with, actually I'd say it's a dice roll. It could come with factory nicks, right? That's name of the game. Fortunately, because this is, you know, the blade is essentially tinfoil, it will be very easy to reprofile those back out, right? What is the coating? It's paint. It is nothing special. There's no way that it is special, right? But is that going to stop this from performing as essentially a throwaway beater? No. This will work just fine as your whatever pocket knife that's sitting in the console of your vehicle, right? Or just the knife that you keep in your pocket for when the guy at work needs to borrow your knife and then goes to use it to pry a staple out of a 2x4 or something. That guy who just doesn't get it, so just uses a pocket knife incorrectly. Yeah, get yourself one of these and then hand this to him. Because this is not, but again, the problem is it's just not available, right? But this is the type of knife that you use for that. When you don't care, you're doing something that's going to require a pocket knife, but you might end up using the knife, or somebody else might end up using the knife in a way that damages it or even breaks it. Oh well, right? This is that type of knife. And that's the type of knife that Ozark Trail makes. They don't make long-term tools, right? You might have an Ozark Trail knife that has worked for you for years and years and years, but if you are truly if you're using your knife every day, this is not that type of knife. This is something that you use periodically and you don't really mind if it breaks, right? So a lot of people, I've heard some people in the comments are saying it really puts into perspective how much a lot of these companies are overcharging for things when you can get essentially the exact same thing from Ozark Trail for $5. It's not, though. It's not the same thing. And you are getting questionable tolerances, questionable fit and finish. Again, better than me or anybody would expect for $5 to $10. I'm not saying at all that this isn't impressive. It is impressive, right? We're coming up to a time period where it might actually be possible to create something like this or better and only charge $5 or $10 for it, right? But as of right now, there are still plenty of reasons. You don't have to, but there are plenty of reasons to spend $30 on something like the CJRB Acacia over spending $5 to $10 on something like this, right? If you are absolutely on an extreme budget, you need the best utility to cost ratio, you are on an extreme budget, right? And you need something that is a borderline throwaway knife. This is legitimately the best thing that I've ever seen. If I'm going to rate it as a knife reviewer, as the type, how good of a knife build is it? It's pretty not good, right? But it's pretty great for $5 to $10. Does that make sense? I'm trying to be very fair. I don't want people to have unrealistic expectations of this thing, and I feel like it's being over-sensationalized because it is a kind of starting to approach the idea of being okay for a pocket knife at $5 to $10, right? Just being fair about it. So now, if Ozark Trail starts to, use steels like, let's say it's 440C. I'd be okay with that as a stainless steel, right? And this very well could be 440C. I don't know because they don't say, right? Let's say they start to use 440C for their stainless steels on this stuff, and they continue to use D2. So you have an option there. It's a decent stainless steel at the price point. It's a great non-stainless steel at the price point. And then they up their quality control to at least match companies like QSP and CJRB, and they're still charging $5 to $10. Oh my God, yeah. Then you have absolutely outclassed those other companies, right? But the reason that this only costs $5 to $10 is not that these guys are overcharging. It's that these guys are cutting corners, and they're corners that not everybody cares about, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, people are paying for elements they don't need. No, this is a different type of product. This is definitely a more long-term product, and this is not, right? And if you don't care, this is all you need in the moment, then it's fine, right? $5 to $10 well spent. Is it $5 to $10 well spent on a pocket knife? Yeah. But I, in almost every circumstance, would suggest, like if somebody was saying, hey, I need a good knife. I don't want to spend a bunch of money. Is this a good one? I'd say, yeah, it's okay. But I would suggest you look at some. I've got some great recommendations in the $30 territory that I would suggest you look at for a more serious but still budget-friendly pocket knife. So, I'm actually going to put this in cheap knives I like because I think it's okay for the money. But I am not going to aggressively recommend. It's not something that I would openly recommend to everybody. So I'm just trying to be fair there. That's going to be it. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.